entire team in New York. I'm very delighted to be speaking and joining with you on this call about the CSW62. As an African woman, also as an individual who have spent almost 25 years working with rural women and also communities that live in poverty in urban settlements, I'm excited to be contributing to this debate. Recalling the 2011 CSW, it was a painful process, noting that the state government were unable completely to come with agreed conclusions, just because there was difficulties in affirming the rural women's right to development. And coming from that perspective, I think we do have a major opportunity that we are going to persuade, convince, but also drive demand for accountability for the governments of the world and people who are in power to make decisions, to tell them that you cannot continue like this. We must be able to make decisions and firm decisions that are going to advance the lives and the rights of the women that live in poverty in rural areas. Now, what is one thing that is giving us the biggest opportunity? The Sustainable Development Goals have been accepted, and all the states of the world are excited to be driving forward and ensuring that they implement them. The SDG framework has an important principle saying that leave no one behind. So when we speak about leaving no one behind, I don't think of anyone that has been left behind in the whole entire development process than the women living in poverty, and in particular the rural women. But whilst we say that the rural women have been left behind, we want to say that they have been up to the task of ensuring the survival of their communities. We have to say that they have brought a capacity up front that many of us are struggling. For example, in my work, I have witnessed how rural women have been at the forefront of building the bridges between the rural and urban settlements. It's the first time that SDG 11 has brought onto the fold the interest of bridging rural and urban divides. But we know before that the communities, particularly the rural farmers, have been working very closely with women living in poverty in the slums. And they have been doing cross trades where, for example, in this country, rural women farmers have been bringing fresh milk, they have been bringing fresh produce to women in the slums who own kiosks. And this direct trade between these two women, it has helped to improve economic status of families that otherwise would have no opportunity to get food or to get their for survival. The other thing is that in the last 4 years, Groots Kenya has been in the forefront of demonstrating that rural women have the capability to show us how we can accelerate ending poverty and driving demand and closing the gender inequality using agricultural sector as an entry point. And one of the most important things that I learned in the last 4 years is how rural women have showed us that agriculture goes beyond farming, it goes beyond trade and market, but also calls for having women in the powerful positions where they can design and say or contribute to what kind of infrastructural development, whether it's roads, electricity, whether we are talking about water connections. They clearly told the leaders who we were working with the strategic places where investment need to go. And this was exciting because otherwise people think only planners, only people who are engineers can be able strategically to design which way infrastructures could go. Now, at the African level, what is happening, I've just spent a whole week in Johannesburg last week, with extraordinary women's rights and women's empowerment activists and feminists who are very keen to ensure that even as we talk about the agenda of the rural women, that we are going to ensure that the rural women are at the center, are at the front of making sure that the decisions that we are carrying forward, the discussions, are the ones that are leading. And one of the commitments that the women in Africa and the organizations that are represented by feminists in feminists in Africa, we have decided we are going to convene national rural women's meetings, where we are going to bring between 80 to 100 women, rural women in different countries of Africa, Eastern and Southern Africa. And we're going to give an opportunity for rural women, one, to know that we are talking about them, because that's a bigger problem. We did a scanning of the rural women who were in the meeting, and it was clear they didn't even know that the CSW62 was about them. So the first thing we are going to do is ensure that the women know that the CSW62 is about them. The second thing is that they are going to give us what are the priority needs that they would like the state government to pursue. The other thing is that we are going also to bring governments at the national level, and we're going to target those ones who probably are going to be at the CSW62 to come and be at the same dialogue space with a significant number of rural women, so that they get an opportunity to listen to the rural women and be able to carry the messages of the rural women. We no longer want to hear, to have a case where we are going on the tables and in the boardrooms and we are discussing about rural women and they don't have an opportunity to be at the table. In fact, one of the slogans that the rural women are saying is that nothing about us and on us without us. We are very clear that, of course, not all the rural women that will be able to come to New York in March next year, but we are hopeful that the more we strategically engage rural women at different levels, the more we get the appropriate ideas, but also content and direction of what needs to represent the agreed conclusion at the end of the CSW62. One other thing that we have been cautioned by many of the rural women, they are telling us, while agriculture is one of the best opportunity for the development world to intervene in and advance the rural women's human rights, rural women are also reminding us they are not only about agriculture, that we need to know that a lot of them are now also engaging themselves in extractive industries. Either they are they are working through the value chain to improve their economic status, but also they are telling us that they are watching how African governments in particular exploit the resources that most often than not are at the hands of the rural women. And what is their status? Rural women don't want to have exploitation of natural resources when such behavior sometimes is only out to destroy or to impact, to violate their rights to control the land, and their right to decide whether they want to be moved out of the places where extractive industries are, their right to see that the impact of the environment and the entire conditions of life, the living conditions of the people living near the extractive industries is not impacted. So there are many issues beyond agriculture. Rural women have told us they are also politicians, and they care about political participation and powers. And they care that at the CSW62, we talk about rural women and their ability and their right to make decisions at the political level. We are also very cautious and aware that the theme also talks about ICT. We were excited to know a lot of women who are speaking about how themselves they are using information and technology. So we do hope there will be opportunity for grassroots women from rural areas to come and showcase how they are using information and technology to advance their own human rights and to empower their own community. Thank you, and I hope this debate continues.